All right, so I talked about M, mastery, B, belonging, and before that I talked about basic needs. Okay, if you want to think about happiness as a kind of a mansion, right, or a palace, you can think of basic needs as the foundation. You need, without that, forget about building the mansion, right? You need that as a foundation. And then comes mastery, which is a pillar, okay, almost like a Greek, Roman, or whatever, you know, big pillar, fat pillar. And then the second one is belonging, okay, which I talked about. The third one is autonomy, okay, which is freedom, which is control, which is leading the life that you want to lead. This is where money comes in so handy, because if you have a lot of money, then you can do the things you want to do. You can live in the kind of house you want to live in, you can decorate it like you want to, you can go on vacations, you can eat the kind of food you want to, and so on and so forth. You can free up time too, right? You can outsource the chores that you don't like to do, okay? That's where money comes in handy, but money only takes you so far, okay? Now, I'll give you some evidence of the importance of autonomy. I'm going to talk about two studies, one done with rats, okay? And this study, in this study, the rats were divided into three groups. Two groups of rats got to do Coke, not Pepsi, Coke, Coke, cocaine, Coke, okay? And one group was the control group of rats that did not get to do Coke, okay? They were all lab rats living out their lives in the cages in a lab, okay? Now, I'm against animal studies, by the way, okay? But this study, we learned something important, which is why I'm talking about it, okay? So the two groups of rats that got to do Coke, they were different in one way. One group, let's call it group A, had control over when and how much Coke they did, okay? Group B, on the other hand, did not have control over these things. So every rat in group B was tethered to a rat in group A, right? And whenever the partner in group A decided to do Coke, at that very moment, this rat, which was paired up with this rat in group B, would also get the Coke in the same quantity, all right? So this rat in group B might have been ready to go to sleep or have a chat with a friend or, you know, eat or what have you, and all of a sudden it would be high, okay, without knowing why, because its partner in group A decided to get high at that point, all right? Was it clear? Okay, so two themes emerged from the study, okay? The first theme is that doing drugs is bad for you, okay? Doing hard drugs is bad for you. You're going to die an earlier death, all right? So the control group of rats outlived the experimental group. But the second theme that emerged, which is the more important one, the one which is more insightful, is that even if you do something that's bad for you, it's better to have control over when and how much you do it, right? So the rats in group A, which had control over when and how much Coke they did, outlived the rats in group B. Another study that I want to very quickly talk about was done with human beings. 1977 is when it came out, the paper. They went to this old age home and they divided the residents of the old age home into two groups. One group of these old age home residents had control over seemingly trivial decisions, what movies to watch over the weekend, what plants to grow in their rooms. Okay, two very, very trivial decisions, you might think. Nothing to do with the medical attention and who gets to visit them and so on and so on. Those are much more important decisions, right? Very trivial decisions. So one group got control over which movies to watch. And you have to remember, the 1970s, there's no iPad, right? Things were in black and white back then. Okay, people, I'm just kidding about the black and white, okay? We still had color. But people would watch these movies in a common room like this. It would be screened on a big screen. Everybody would be like together in this big room and watch it. So you had to actually make a choice of which movies to watch. It wasn't the case that, you know, you had an iPad, you could just press the movie and watch it, right? So it is a group decision. And the group that got to make the decision may choose, let's say, Dumb and Dumber or some movie like that, and everyone else had to watch it, okay? And also similarly the plant, okay? One group had a choice, okay, I want to grow a cactus, I want to grow this or that. The other group was just given a plant, okay, this is the plant you're going to grow. They came back a year and a half later, and every 3 months in between, and measured the psychological stress and happiness levels of these old age home residents, and they were completely taken aback by the results. Okay, the group that had control over these trivial decisions reported significantly higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress than did the other group. And not just that, the mortality rate in the group that did not have control was twice that of that group that had control, right? Now, even in the group that had control, 15% of them had passed away in 1.5 years, which you might think is high, which is high really for the average person. But remember, this was an old age home. They were living out the last few years of their lives. Okay, but in the group that did not have control, it was as high as 30%. Okay, and they were surprised by these results, so they replicated it in another country in the United Kingdom and found the same results. All right, so if you have old people living with you, it's very important to kind of give them a sense of autonomy, a sense of freedom, because it can be a huge source of stress. They're already losing autonomy over their physical body, right? Incontinence and things like that might happen. But on top of that, if they don't have psychological autonomy, that can really be really detrimental to their psychological health. All right, so I talked about